On the day of my wedding, my mother-in-law handed me a note. I ran out through the back door and disappeared for 15 years. My eyes fixed on my mother-in-law, whose face looked like someone who had just seen a ghost. In her trembling hand, a small envelope shook and her eyes were frozen in an expression of pure panic. The loud music in the banquet hall of the old mansion muffled any other sound, making our conversation completely private. That sunny May morning should have been perfect. The imposing mansion of my fiancé Victor's family was immaculate, ready to welcome the guests. The waiters arranged crystal glasses with precision, and the air was filled with the fragrance of fresh roses and the scent of fine champagne. The luxurious portraits framed in gold seemed to observe everything carefully from the walls. But the perfection everyone saw was just a facade. "Valentina, did you notice that Victor is acting strangely today?" my mother-in-law whispered, looking around with unease. I furrowed my brow. Indeed, Victor had been tense all day. Now he was on the other side of the room, holding the phone to his ear, his face rigid, as if hiding something. The smile he usually shared with me, the one that made my heart race, was completely absent. Just pre-wedding nerves. I tried to minimize, adjusting my veil, trying to keep up appearances. But a feeling of cold spread through my body. Something was wrong. She looked at me with a dark air, hesitant, as though she was making a decision. Then, almost imperceptibly, she approached me with a furtive look and whispered, "Look at this." "Right now," she murmured, slipping an envelope into my hands before disappearing among the guests, regaining her elegant posture and a rehearsed social smile. Not knowing what to think, I looked at the envelope with anxiety. It wasn't like she handed me notes every day, especially not on a day like this. There was something in her behavior that I couldn't comprehend. Her eyes were filled with something between fear and guilt. It wasn't possible. Hurriedly, I found a more discreet corner and opened the note. The crumpled and stained paper seemed from another time, but the words were too clear. My heart stopped for a moment. "Victor and his family plan to get rid of you after the wedding. You're part of a scheme. They know about your family's inheritance. Run if you want to live." The feeling of vertigo took over me. My first instinct was to laugh, but I couldn't. This had to be a cruel joke from my mother-in-law. It wasn't possible. But then the pieces started to fit together. I remembered Victor's suspicious conversations, which he always cut short when I showed up. His furtive glances, his sudden coldness. Something was wrong, but I had been so blinded by love, so consumed by the idea of a perfect future, that I never noticed the signs. In that fraction of a second, everything turned into chaos within me. An agonizing pain spread across my chest, as if my heart was being ripped out of me. The shock paralyzed me. How could I have been so naive? How did no one warn me before? My gaze crossed the room and found his. Victor had finished his call and was now watching me. He was smiling, but it wasn't the smile of love. It was cold, calculating. My blood ran cold. "Valentina!" my friend called excitedly, interrupting my thoughts. "It's time. I'll be right there. I just need to go to the bathroom." I lied, my voice trembling as if I was trying to deceive myself. Without hesitation, I turned on my heels and, disguising my urgency, walked to the service corridor. Every step seemed heavier than the last, but I could no longer turn back. With every passing moment, an invisible force pushed me out of that mansion, out of that world that was collapsing before me. The only sound I heard now was the loud beating of my own heart, which screamed at me to run. As soon as I reached the street, I didn't hesitate. I took off my shoes and ran faster than I ever had. My steps echoed through the empty street, and the biting wind seemed to scream against me as if trying to stop me. But I didn't look back, not anymore. That day I left everything behind, my past, my life, even my name. Like a soul abandoning everything for a chance to survive, I disappeared. And for 15 years, no one knew where I went. I didn't know what awaited me, but I didn't know that at that moment my journey was just beginning. The following years were a silent and constant escape. I traveled from city to city, changing my identity whenever the weight of guilt and fear became unbearable. In each place I built a new life, but Victor's shadow, the betrayal he inflicted on me, never left me at peace. For months I wondered if he was still looking for me, if he hated me as much as I hated him. But what consumed me was a silent pain, deeper than any resentment. The loss of trust, the death of what I thought was love. It was in a small coastal village far from everything that I finally found a gap to restart. There, no one knew me, and I withdrew, deciding to work at a small cafe by the sea. The smell of fresh coffee and the sound of the waves crashing on the beach became my cure. Each cup I served seemed to return a piece of myself, as if the simple work and conversations with strangers were a way to cleanse the wounds. But there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't look at the sea and think about my old life, about the day of my wedding, about the promises that were made and broken. Yet something inside me told me that the worst had passed. I had survived, and that was all that mattered. Little by little, I began to learn to trust again, to believe that I could be happy without being defined by the pain of the past. But the truth was, no matter how hard I tried, something always pulled me back. A question without an answer. What happened to Victor? Was he still alive? And my mother-in-law? The note, the truth. Had they lied? These questions haunted me, but I knew some things had to be left behind. Destiny, however, would not leave my questions unanswered for long. One day, when I least expected it, Victor appeared at the door of the cafe. He was older, more marked by time, but the coldness in his eyes was the same. That calculating man was standing in front of me, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again. He looked at me without saying a word, but his expression said everything. There was regret, fear, and something else, something I didn't know how to interpret. I took a deep breath, preparing to face the man who had destroyed my life. But before I could speak, he stepped forward. I came to apologize, and I know I don't deserve it, but the note... You were right. I couldn't tell you. He seemed to stumble over his words, each syllable coming out as if he were drowning. I looked at him, silent. I didn't know if I wanted to hear more or if I should let him go. But something inside me knew this was the last chance to close that chapter once and for all. And so before the man who had caused me so much pain, I took the final step. I forgave him. Because in the end, forgiveness wasn't for him. It was for me.